Happy fall.
Happy fall. This is my favorite time of year. Did you know that?
Well, it is your very fave.
It's my very fave. Yeah. Like I'll take it over Christmas. I've learned to love Christmas a lot more the last few years, but I love warm drinks and the crisp air and the sweaters and all the things that are fall. I love
Mhm.
them.
I love fall too. I mean, I just love it. And everything about it. I'm always like running into fall, and everyone's so sad to say goodbye to summer. Not me.
Oh
I'm like
gosh, no.
sprinting into fall.
It's too hot here in the summer. It's just plain too hot. So I love fall. I think it's part of the schoolgirl in me too, because I love back to school. It
Mhm.
feels new, like new beginnings.
Mhm.
And so I'm
Well, I
glad
was
that we're
also
talking.
thinking that really nods to your Northwest roots when you said it's too hot here in the summer. Like
Oh yeah.
you're still very much a Northwest girl through and through.
Yeah. No triple digits for me. That's
Yeah,
way too hot.
I know.
Though it's a dry heat. We always joke that people say that about Colorado, but it's a dry
Mhm.
heat.
Mhm.
Okay, well, how have you liked our very mini, our very brief fall reset series so far? This is the
I have
third
loved
episode.
it. I've
Yep.
loved it. I mean, a part of it is I just love the practical nature of this episode of this series.
Mhm.
And I really enjoyed both of our guests a lot. I felt like they had some really good tips and some just great one-liners, actually. Like,
Mhm.
I loved Sarah saying, the kids are capable. And I would pivot that to say teens are even more capable. So, I mean, if I had to rework that little phrase, I would say teenagers are really capable. And maybe that's one of the things I'm taking away from her interview is that, we often with teenagers, I actually feel like my kids were young, like they thought it was so fun to sweep and vacuum and, do all the things.
Mhm.
And teenagers don't think it's fun anymore. And so it's sometimes a little bit of a challenge to get them to do certain jobs or certain things. And I am tempted to do it for them, right? So that
Mhm.
I don't have to have that interaction. And so it's just a good reminder that, kids are capable and teenagers are really capable. So make them do
Yeah,
things.
they are. What else did you like? What did you like from Abby's
I
interview?
really liked that hospitality is a discipline. And, for me, if I'm looking at it as a discipline, like I do the other things in my life, for example, working out or eating healthy or getting to sleep on time, like all those things, I pre-plan. And so if I look at hospitality as a discipline as well, then that needs to include that pre-planning. And I think for me, setting that up for success, again, we're in a post-COVID. No, we're not post-COVID. I always say that, but we're not. We're
We are
we're
not.
still we're still mid-COVID. I mean, we're definitely living that around here. Um, but this whole idea that we have been pulled back from people and we are coming out of that even still in the midst of COVID. But we're starting, just to be in more regular life again and kind of living with COVID. That's a better way to put it.
Mhm.
And so, what does that look like? And for me, I think that really looks like putting a specific day of the month on the calendar. And we're going to make sure that, in this time frame, or like I look at every month uniquely and say, okay, this day, we're going to do something that really, has people in our home doing this, and our schedule is busy, and often weeknights are not a practical time for us to have people over because of the season of life we're in. That's just not that's not optimal for my family, which needs to come first. I need to be hospitable to them first. And so, but I can within a month schedule see, okay, this day would be a really great day for this to happen.
Mhm. Right. Whereas if you think of it as a spiritual discipline, you just think the spirit's going to move me and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen.
Yeah,
Which
right.
that even if it's a spiritual discipline, you still have to figure out what's for dinner or Make sure the chairs are wiped down or whatever it is that needs to get done.
Well, and maybe rethinking too, because for example, like tonight, like this week is a big week for our high school, and there's stuff every night of this week. And so part of that hospitality as a discipline is, like, I had a mom who texted me this morning and said, hey, do you want to go to the game tonight with all of our kids? And let's, and honestly, I've got so much to do. We have company coming in town tomorrow, and I've got like all this food I need to cook, and then all these just things on my plate. But instead, I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to say yes to this because it's a chance for me to do this with these kids and this mom and all of us together. And so even that was pivoting my thinking, like, situation by situation, can we ask, how does this fit into hospitality as a discipline? And for me, it's kind of disciplining my thinking to say, okay, those things will get done, and I can actually maybe involve kids in the cooking to get it done faster. So how can I make room for this space tonight, for this to make a memory together? And it's a different form of hospitality, right? But it's still, we're still taking all the kids. We're still kind of, probably getting them food and organizing. It's just, it's taking it on the road. It's hospitality on the road, which we've talked about before on the podcast.
Oh yeah. The whole tailgate experience.
Yeah. Okay. What about you? What would you say you took away from the interviews?
Well, one thing that I love hearing, because I always love hearing homeschool moms talk about how short their school days are, that you can homeschool in 2 hours a day. Now, granted, her kids are little. You probably can't homeschool a high schooler in 2 hours a day, but it shows how much time is spent in a classroom, I think, for a child just sitting around and waiting on and learning social skills in that process. I will say that's not always time wasted, but that academics really can be condensed down to 2 hours a day. I just am so proud of homeschool moms for that, because that sounds lovely. And it makes homeschooling sound so much more doable. If you're not thinking, oh, but my kids would be at school from 9 to 3 or however long the school day is, that homeschool parents don't spend that much time doing that. I know that. It just was really fun to hear her say 2 hours a day. And then Abby, I think, remembering to simplify. I loved how she said over and over, it's about the people. And so it just doesn't have to be complicated. We overcomplicate so many things, from the food to just making it this big production. And it really doesn't have to be that. So again, I knew that, but it was a good reminder.
For sure.
So I'm ready. I'm ready for fall. I'm ready to not be sweating and to have people come over. And, I have a very, very busy next 6 weeks. So trying to figure out how to not forget about the people in my life because of my to-do list. I think that's part of what I felt inspired by these two women to think about, is things need to get done, but people need to be attended to. And so how do we do both well?
Totally. Yeah. Which is why I said yes for tonight. Like, it really did challenge me to make a different decision than maybe I would have. Okay. As you just said, I'm ready for fall. I've got a busy next 6 to 8 weeks. So talk to me about, how do you reboot your system for fall, kind of your whole life system?
Well, I am trying to be better about thinking ahead and planning ahead, so that in my downtime, I know the things that I can be working on, so that if I'm working on something in September, my October self will be happy. And so I just happen to have a lot of work related trips in the next 6 weeks, partly because people are finally having events and people are coming together, but partly just the nature of fall is busy. So I have been working pretty far ahead compared to where I normally do. And I'm proud of myself for that, but I'm still stressed, but I am way less stressed than I would have been had I been doing things on my normal track. So I'm trying to be better about that and knowing what needs to be done in order for me to leave, working on things now, and like carpooling. I can be working on carpooling and a carpool schedule for when I'm gone for October now. Sometimes other people are like, what? Let's talk about that in a month. But they might also be ready to be talking about it. So that's what I'm doing. What are you doing to reboot your fall as you look ahead to the next few months?
Well, I'm a big proponent, as you know, of the bulk scheduling. So like I sit down and I have, just a chunk of time where I really block out my schedule. So, and so there's two tiers to this. So the first tier is figuring out what I'm doing every day. So because I tend to dip into a lot of different areas, like we have the Open Door Sisterhood, we have the retreat, we have the podcast, we have, different various things we're doing. And then I've got my coaching, and then we just have lots of different little categories. And so on top of that, kids activities and all the home stuff that we're planning. And so I just tend to designate days that this is my day for this. This is my day for this. This is my day for this. So that's helpful. And then every week, I really do just brain dump everything onto paper. And then I figure out, okay, so that's an Open Door Sisterhood task. So I don't like categorize them when I'm necessarily brain dumping, but then as I pull them off of there and put it actually into my schedule, then I put it on the day it's supposed to go in, if that makes sense.
It does. I just watched a video last night that the lazy genius Kendra Adachi did on scheduling, and that's exactly what she does. Okay. She does a brain dump, and then she starts putting things into the week ahead, and then she starts trying to put things together, like errands together. If I'm out doing this, then I'm going to also do this. And she just transfers things from her to-do list onto her calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's exactly how I do it. And I really like that system because it's helpful for me to have a skeleton, but not too tight of a skeleton. So I don't do well when it's super rigid. Like, here's what I'm doing by the hour. Like, I don't like that. I think it's just good for me to say, okay, today is Open Door Sisterhood Day. And then whatever is really pressing in the Open Door Sisterhood, that's what goes on that day, so it's, but then once you have that list for that week, because I like doing it by the week, because then it's all very current, the things that are happening. And then the list bosses you. I mean, the list, and you and I have talked about that before, but then the list tells you what to do. And, the whole thing, one of the main premises of coaching is that we don't live intentionally, we live in a way that's reactive. And so we're just letting kind of life and how it's going tell us what to do. Whereas I feel like it changes that dynamic, and it really does put us in the driver's seat, and we can say, okay, this is what I should be doing, what I need to be doing, and what is purposeful in this category.
Yeah, that's good. We like to be purposeful.
And then of course, the family whiteboard, I've talked about it a lot. I utilize it. I love it. I get everything for the week up on the whiteboard, including what we're having for dinner. And that is just really helpful to me. So I've got usually a verse at the top that I'm wanting as a family for us to be looking at. I've got my meals, and that's really just for me. Of course, some kids love to know what they're having for dinner, but for me, it just helps me organize my brain. And then it also has the kids' activities up there. And then we kind of know as a family where we're headed that week.
Yeah. Well, that does remind me that I need to get on the meal planning, because I feel like since June, I've been saying I need to get back on meal planning. It's hard in the summer because I have a husband who just wants to grill every single night. So I let him.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I let him. I mean, why wouldn't I let him? That sounds very controlling. Of course, he's hungry and he cooks and we all eat it. That's what happens. But I do need to get more organized this fall around that.
It's so helpful. Man, it's so helpful. Well, how would you say you organize your work from home system?
Mhm.
Because I feel like it's like meal planning is a whole category, and it's time. I mean, it is, and you're doing it in bulk, which is what I like, because
Mhm.
that's so helpful. But I do think it's hard to balance your time when you've got this work home dynamic and you're working from home, which,
Mhm.
more people than ever are working from home. And there's
Right.
some really unique challenges that come with that. So how do you set up your system so that for success?
Mhm. Well, one, I like to get dressed for work. Just that's my work from home tip. I do like to feel like, oh, I'm ready for the day. And I've changed my clothes and I'm not just wearing my workout clothes for the day because I just go from, I mean, sometimes I even work out in my office. Like it's just to differentiate. This is now my work time. Um, but I will say I have all of these, like you mentioned, all of these different arms of work that I'm working on. So I started a part-time job this summer. I am still doing stuff for the Open Door Sisterhood. I have a book releasing next month. So all of those categories have different tasks that need to be done. And then I have a family. And so I have things that need to be done for that. So I've recently started uh, brain dumping, but organizing as I'm dumping. So what I do is I take a sheet of paper, I do a big cross in the middle of it to separate it into 4 sections. And then I label each section based on those 4 categories. So Open Door Sisterhood, book release, my job at Project 127, and then home and family. And then I write down tasks and I try to make the tasks as small as possible that I write down. And so that I can be successful in them and cross them off. That feels good. But also because sometimes I'm still holding brain weight if it's a big project that has multiple components. So I want to write down all of those components so that I can then release the brain weight and let it live on the paper. And I don't have to worry about it. I know it's on the paper. And then pretty soon, as I'm crossing things off, there are more things crossed off than there are left to do on the list. It starts getting messy. I also start remembering things that need to get done. So I'm adding to it. Then I transfer the things that aren't done and I create a new clean one, maybe a few days later, so that I'm not just looking at all the stuff that's been done, but I'm looking still at the things that need to get done. So that's how I have been managing it. And then when I only have 10 minutes between a phone call and leaving to pick kids up from school, I can look at my list and say, what's a 10-minute job? And I can do it. And then that's good. That's a better use of my 10 minutes than scrolling on Instagram, which would be my other option or my go-to or my zone out, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that's what I like to do. And are there other things you do at home as you're kind of, I mean, we were just talking before we started recording about quarantining. And really, my everyday life is kind of a quarantine because I don't really ever leave this place. I mean, I go to the grocery store, but I'm even trying to avoid that these days just because I don't like grocery shopping.
You can click
So,
list.
yeah, I do. Well,
You're
I
big on
do
that.
the pickup at the grocery store so I can order it. Yeah. And then they just put it in my trunk and I drive away and I say, thank you very much. I'm going to take these groceries home. Or I do go to Costco, but I can make a Costco run last a good while. So what about you, Krista? How, as you live the quarantine, non-quarantine, work from home, live at home life, how do you manage all of it? And as you're kind of starting in the fall.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. The put on makeup, clothes that look our actual work clothes, like it really does change your vibe. Totally changes your vibe from like I'm hanging out with my coffee and my workout clothes to like, oh, I need to get stuff done. So I agree with you. There's something about that physical switch that matters. And so I do think that's key. And then I would also say, I find one of the most challenging pieces to working at home is that you can never turn it off, or you have the potential to never turn it off because everything bleeds into each other and it's always there because of your laptop right in front of you. And so I once heard an expert talking about a closing ritual, which I think I've shared before, but it really is helpful, is you write all the things that didn't get done. So you brain dump at the end of the day, and then you have a closing statement that you say something like, one of the things that John Maxwell says that I really like is he says, you should ask two things at the end of every day. The first one is, what did I really like about today? What's one thing I really liked about today? And what's something I learned today? And so you could just do that very quickly. You know, that could be a closing ritual. It could be a statement that you say, but just something where you say, okay, I'm going to reflect for a second, because that's actually a big life coaching tip is you reflect. It's not lived experience that makes you wiser. It's reflective lived experience that makes you wiser. If you're not reflecting on it, you don't get wiser from it. So just taking that second to reflect on your day and say, okay, this is what I learned today. This is what I loved about today, which is a good gratitude practice. And then you write all your stuff down, you close your computer, and then you're done, you know? And so that's helpful for me as I think through boundaries, because those boundaries can really bleed, especially because I'm a night person. And so what I tend to do right now is think about, what are some tasks that need to get done that I can get done that's not work related, that's more home related, that puts me in the milieu with my family, but where I'm still able, like, so maybe they're watching a game and I'm folding laundry, or they're upstairs doing homework at the island and I'm cooking and I'm food prepping. So, you know, I try and save that kind of stuff for more the evening hours when I can be present with my family, but maybe still getting some of the things done that are left on the to-do list.
Yeah, they're in the home quadrant. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about chores, because that was a subject that came up. And I do think as we're rebooting for fall, that's a key component to rebooting. So what would you say? Let me rephrase that. Chores, let's dip into chores. Chores are something that we can do to reset for fall with our entire family, that helps get everybody involved. That's really good for our kids with teaching them work ethic and that they contribute to the family. So what are some ways that you do that?
I'm not really good at it. Let's be real clear on that. I am a person who when you're talking about teenagers are capable, I know they're capable. And my love language is also acts of service. So I really love doing some things that I know my kids don't want to do, because I feel like it's a way I can care for them. And because I feel like I'm going to miss doing this for you someday. So anyway, all to say, I'm not real great at I've never been a chore chart person. I've never been, but my younger two are interested in helping, partly because they're interested in allowance. So this summer, when we've had more time, we've had daily tasks. It really helps my kids if it's something they have to do every day. But I am just trying to get a handle constantly on a few clean, common spaces. So that's our living room area, the kitchen, our bedroom. I feel like I have some control over, because there's only one other person who's putting stuff down there. And so those three areas are kind of my main focus. And now I am trying to work on my office, because I do have a few stacks of papers around. But I feel like if I get the common areas cleaned up, everyone feels better when they're coming home at the end of the day. And if I can do that in the morning and then I'm in my office all day, it's still clean by the time everybody gets home. Yeah. What about you? Is there something you do on a daily that helps?
Well, I am big on having kids do dishes. So dishes are just I just feel like it's super easy for them to unload the dishwasher. So if they're on for dishes that day, they're on for the morning unload and they're on for the evening load. And so that includes the whole deal, and then someone else feeds the dog. And then other chores on, so that's just something we have every day. Someone's on for that. And then for the other chores, my go-to that I've landed on after 1,000 chore systems is the Post-it notes that, okay, if we need to get we need to get the house clean by tomorrow, because we have guests coming in. So I will be putting Post-its out tonight, and everybody picks however many I tell them to pick, 2, 3, whatever, and then they're in charge of getting that Post-it done. And that's just really a system that has worked for us because it's a needed basis. And so we have, kind of two things going. We have small chores that are consistent, but then the bigger stuff, I just do right there with Post-it notes.
So each note has a unique chore on it.
Yeah. So like one would be clean downstairs bathroom. And then I write exactly what I want them to do just to make sure that all the boxes are checked. Windex mirror, empty the garbage, right? Like all the things that I want them specifically to do. And then, another one will say vacuum the downstairs, includes all carpet areas. So, just being like specific.
Yeah, that's very teacher of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a teacher trick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So fall is usually, in a typical year, the time when all the school activities start coming and schedules start getting busy again. And I think for some of us, the shock of not having done this for a while, of running around and having all kinds of kids and activities, we're a little bit reeling. So how are you hitting the fall reset button as we go back into school, which I think around the country, most kids are in school in person, and activities that go with it? How are you handling that?
Well, I'm really handling it, I think, the way that I traditionally have, and that is that, limit kids to one activity per season. But again, that can add up pretty fast. And so then there are times where you have to say no. Like if I want to have family dinner this many nights a week, now we maybe can't every night, but if I want to these many nights a week, there may be a hard no that needs to happen. And that's tough. I always hate those, whether it's to my own child or to an activity or something or to a coach, which is really hard. But I think getting used to saying hard no's sometimes is helpful. And then I would say the other thing is just, enlisting help when needed. And so whether that's, like you said, planning for carpool, I mean, that's super, super helpful. It is a time saver times 1,000, but sometimes we don't actually take the step to organize the carpool. It literally just takes one person to organize, right? You just have to have the organizer and then everybody kind of does it. That whole thing again, live with intention. And so I think enlisting carpool is just a really smart, easy way to save a lot of time when it comes to busyness for families.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say we accidentally overcommitted one of our children this fall because it's the post-COVID enthusiasm at our house. Again, not post-COVID, living with COVID.
Yes.
Enthusiasm, just things that weren't available a year ago are now available to her. And so as a family, we're doing okay, but this one particular child, I feel like, has committed to too much. I still am getting used to the fact that some of my children can drive themselves places. And that, I just want to say to moms of younger kids who are not in this stage yet, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Even if they don't have their own car designated to them, they can use your car and you can stay home and make dinner. So it is just a beautiful thing. So we're fully taking advantage of that.
Yes.
And
I lost my driver and it hurts.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm still driving people around, and it's one thing that I have done this fall is one of my girls has soccer practice near my mom's house. So I drop her off and then I come home, start dinner, or Derek starts dinner. And my mom picks her up and brings her back and then has dinner with us. So it's kind of that hitching principle that you talk about of putting two activities together. But my mom can help us practically by doing that because it's right on her way home over to our house. And it helps me from one drive. And then that frees me up to have some time to get ready for her and then have dinner together. So it kind of like win, 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 win. So
totally.
That's been one way that I've been trying to incorporate carpool and being with people.
I love it. Well, let's talk about family mealtime. And really, as we're looking at kind of resetting family dinners, what would you say are some tips you have on setting those up well in order for those to be just a really set apart special space?
Well, I'm not sure. Right now, we are adjusting to having one empty seat at the table as
hard.
We've had our first child go to college, and it's only been a few weeks. And I think this last week has been the first week of like, oh, this is our new reality. I just last night said to Derek, for a split second, I thought, I wonder what time she's coming home. Like she just must not be here and remembering, oh no, she's not coming home tonight. I know. So we're still adjusting. Dinner is one of those times when it still feels very much like, oh, there's only 5 of us here. We are trying to still eat outside as much as possible, and we will, as long as it's not too cold in the evening. That makes it just feel more relaxed and gets away from the mess of the kitchen. And it feels like a set apart place because we don't sit at that table on our back patio unless we're eating. And it just feels really great. Whereas our dining room table is kind of the do all everything kind of place. And I said, I haven't really been cooking, and I'm not really right now. My husband has taken that over partly because I'm adjusting to working from home. And now we're adjusting to driving kids places after school. And that's taking up a big chunk of my time. But I'm just going with it. I'm letting him decide what's for dinner, and I'm eating whatever he prepares.
That's really unique. I've never had a season in my married life, just because that's not really our family system. That's not, my husband would never be able to do that.
Right.
Because of his schedule. So that's actually such a blessing.
Right. And this is the other thing is we have a grocery store 2 blocks from us. And he really likes walking down there and picking something out to make for dinner that same night. That drives me totally crazy. I would rather pick a box of mac and cheese out and saying, we're just going to make do tonight. And he's like, no making do. We're going to go, I'm going to get stuff for salad and I'm going to and great. It is a little bit his end of day ritual as he's kind of closing the workday, and our youngest goes with him a lot, and it's their time together.
How sweet. What a sweet memory.
Yeah. So it's really that's part of it too. And not everybody has the benefit of a grocery store 2 blocks from their house. I will say baked kale has been the last month our side go-to. So crispy and salty and yummy and good for you.
Do you put nutritional yeast on it?
No, I put olive oil and salt on it.
And just, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I don't even know what nutritional yeast is.
It's good. It's really good. And it's good on it. Though certain ones I like, certain ones I don't like. Okay.
What about you? Dinner?
Yeah.
Ideas?
I would just say, I really like dinner time to be full of good conversation, which is no surprise to anyone. And so I love having a question jar that's there. We have a foreign exchange student this year. So I actually think that's really helpful for him, even as, we're getting to know each other and as we're learning about each other and each other's cultures. So question jar or whatever, you can use table topics, whatever it is. And I also love bringing a topic to the table. So whether it's an article or something, and then we start discussing, and because my kids are older, they often have opinions. So it's a way for them to practice sharing their opinion or forming an opinion and saying, what do I think about that? So I think that's always fun and helpful. And then, we're also, because of our foreign exchange student, we're going to do a Spanish night one day a week where everybody speaks Spanish. So that's that is on deck for this year, which I think is super fun. I'm excited about.
That's very fun. I want to
Mhm.
come for it.
Well, you would just be rolling on that. My Spanish is so rusty. It's going to take me a long time to break this back into a useful place, but I am ready to try.
Well, and you get the fun Spanish accent with the, I mean,
Totally.
Spaniards are, being a Spaniard, I can say we're quite a funny people.
Well, I know he was just sharing that with me last night, that we may need to step up our game, our Spanish game, because we have learned a Spanish that the Spanish don't think is real Spanish. So
okay, I'm rolling my eyes for anybody who can't see, because yes, it's very, but just think of like British versus American.
Yes.
And just, we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Okay, we got to wrap this up. So, do you have a plan as you're doing your fall reset for spiritual growth?
So I've done this differently. A lot of falls, I'm actually in a study. This fall, I'm not in an actual study with people, but I'm doing a study that I really love. And it has a little workbook. It's called Secrets of the Secret Place. And so it's a book, but it's like small chapters. So you just read a little chapter, but then the workbook, you actually go in depth into scripture around that. But I have to say, it's a transformational book. Like, it is one of those that, like, it sinks deeply. You can't just breeze through it. It's like, you got to, half the time I only do half of a lesson because it's really deep and beautiful. And I just feel like there's something shifting a little bit in me through this study. So highly recommend that. But I would just say for me, and sometimes I pick a book of the Bible and then I start going through the book of the Bible. So I've done different things, but for me, it's just consistency. As I look at fall reset, it's how can I be consistent in the spiritual practice of really spending the time with God, whatever that looks like. Usually for me, it's in the morning and starting my day as well. How about you?
Well, I'm reading 2 books right now that I really love. I have them both right here because they're on my desk. This one is called Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership, Seeking God in the Crucible of Ministry by Ruth Haley Barton. And this is for people who, as I jokingly say, are professional Christians. So you you work in ministry in some regards. You work on church staff, you work just in ministry that could be quite hard. And it's so good. It is just beyond good. And then there's a spiritual practice at the end of every chapter that she encourages you to try. She is known for being a woman about spiritual practices, Ruth Haley Barton.
She's amazing.
And then our friend Kendra Tillman recommended, she actually recommended Praying the Scriptures for Your Young Adult Children, but I bought Praying Your Scriptures for Teens, both by Jody Burnt. And it's exactly what the title says. So it has scripture for all different kinds of topics that you can pray for your kids. And it's been quite useful for me, I have to say.
So great. So great. All right. Well, here we go. We are taking fall by storm. We are so intentional. We're going to speak it until it happens. But no, we really are excited to reset. And speaking of, we are resetting at the Sisterhood. And so you want to talk about that?
Yes. So we are looking for a couple of people that might want to help the Sisterhood be the Sisterhood, do the things that we do. We're going to be posting on our website some positions that are open. We're looking for some help with our social media and some administrative work. These are not paid positions unless you count our gratitude and all kinds of fun perks of being part of the inner Sisterhood circle as payment. But it is a way to be involved in something. If you're looking at the fall and thinking, oh, I have a few extra hours a month that I would like to dedicate to something that feels meaningful, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so we'll have that in our show notes today, and you may even get some bonus coaching with me if you volunteer with us. So we would love for you to check that out. And all right, that's it for today. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Happy fall.